commitments to partnerships and collaboration. And our first panel will consider the future of airports. And we already heard this morning from Paul Griffiths about the exciting future of airports there, the CEO of Dubai Airports. And of course, airports have evolved significantly, and they have different purposes, targeting different segments. I flew from Istanbul Airport, by the way, a fantastic airport indeed. And while certain airports have become efficient travel hubs, others are becoming destinations in their own right. And as we look to the future, what is the airport's vision for the future, and how will they evolve to achieve their ambitions? That is the question, that is the focus. And for that, it gives me great pleasure to once again welcome to the stage Naweed Jabakal and his panel. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Maria. Hello, welcome back. Hope you had a good coffee break. Salam alaikum to all the guests here. We heard from Paul Griffiths earlier, a big name in the world of airports and what he's achieved in Dubai. Some people love them, some people hate them. If you're like me, I get there as late as possible, try to run through, get on the plane and just want to get to the other side. But some people want to get there early. They want to leisure around and see what's on offer. But airports are changing. I mean, the grand designs in place now may see some look to have aquariums in the future or butterfly gardens and plenty of high-end retail. But just what does the future have in store for airports? To discuss that, a really timely time here in Saudi Arabia as well, given the announcement we've just had here at this summit for the King Salman International Airport. 6 runways, 120 million passengers by 2030, so plenty of ambition. I'd like to call to the stage His Excellency Abdulaziz bin Abdullah Al Doailej, the President of the General Aviation Authority here in Saudi Arabia. Your Excellency. Also joining us is Luis Felipe Oliveira, Director General of Airports Council International. And John Selden, again a familiar face for many here in Saudi Arabia, the CEO of NEOM Airport. Your Excellency, I'll start with you. 6 runways. London's Heathrow Airport was the busiest for the world for a long time. 2 runways, 120 million passengers by 2030. Why do you need this airport, and what's the thinking behind it?
Good morning. I think that's an interesting question, but to address the question, you need to understand the aviation, or the national aviation strategy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. When the strategy was approved less than 2 years ago, the target was to reach more than 330 million passengers by 2030, compared to about 100 million that was achieved in 2019. And also, another target was to increase the connectivity, air connectivity, from about 100 destinations around the globe to more than 250 destinations. Of course, along with this, we have the targets on the cargo, which are going to be quadrupled from about 800,000 tons to more than 4.5 million tons. Now, the announcement that was made by His Royal Highness on King Salman's new airport talked about 2 main milestones. The first one is the 2030 vision, which is reaching 120 million passengers. And the 6 runways, that is the second phase, where the airport will be expanded to accommodate up to 185 million passengers and about 3.5 million tons of cargo.
And thank you, Your Excellency. Luis, airports around the world, it's becoming a rather competitive thing when it comes to building the best airport, the biggest airport. In your opinion, looking at it from a global perspective, what makes a good airport, and what should countries around the world and policymakers be looking for when they're thinking about designing these buildings for passengers?
Thank you. First of all, it's very excited to be here in Saudi Arabia, especially in this important moment for the country with a lot of changes, a lot of investment coming in. And the global airports, we run around 9 billion passengers from the year of 2019. We expected to double the size by 2040. And to double the size, we need to be more efficient. We need to be more efficient as a whole ecosystem. On an airport, when you realize that it's not only the airline and the airport, it's the whole ecosystem that needs to work well, needs to work together in order to have a seamless travel experience for the passenger. And at the end, we need to focus on the passenger experience at all. That's why basically the investments needs to come, the new ideas needs to come to improve the efficiency that we have to bring the better experience for our passengers. At the end, they are the reason of our existence.
And John, we heard about some of the Saudi aviation strategy and how it fits in with Vision 2030. Obviously, NEOM is very important to Vision 2030. You have the advantage of a rather blank canvas in terms of designing an airport. How are you going to be using technology, in particular, something that's becoming synonymous with NEOM?
Well, good morning and thank you. NEOM is a blank sheet of paper. So when I came here, I was given that blank sheet of paper and worked with a great team to come up with the future. And the future, we all know it's going to be high-tech, seamless, frictionless, all of those things. But the real future of NEOM is that when you arrive at the airport, you will be in the city. You will be in the line. And we need to bring that experience forward. So instead of focusing necessarily on the airport and being a destination, we want to facilitate getting you into the city as fast as we can. And when you think about speed, that reduces dwell time of passengers that are going to spend money in your airport, right? That you make money in parking. Well, in NEOM, there's no parking. We're going to be on a green rail system. So we don't have that. We're going to have a very quick, seamless, high-efficient airfield with minimum taxi times and connecting times. And because we are the greenfield, we can design to that standard. There's many examples around the world of how to do this right. And we're going to take that and make it better in NEOM. So you look at the revenue piece and you say, okay, I lose parking. Concessions and sales are going to be low because you're not in the airport very long, a few minutes. Oh, boy, what do I got left? We have aeronautical charges, and oh, by the way, we have leases. Well, aeronautical charges, we need to keep down so we track the traffic so airlines can make profits. So now you think about it, the airport will be a part of the city. It will be in that ecosystem, which is very different than the business models that you see out there today.
And Your Excellency, looking at Saudi Arabia, but airports all around the world, staff shortages have been something that's impacted the sector, particularly in airports. What do you think can be done to use technology to try and reduce those sorts of difficulties in the future?
That's an interesting question, Farid. I think post-COVID, the aviation industry faced many challenges, starting from the various or different health protocols that have been adopted by different countries. It was so confusing for travelers to adapt with different health protocols at different countries. And this is why the Kingdom has announced during the last Future Aviation Summit in May the so-called Health Air Protocol, or HAT. And that has been also submitted to the AKU Council last month for approval to ensure that we have a unified health passport or health travel document among all countries and travelers. The second is the raising cost. Raising cost is another challenge that has been faced by airports post-COVID. Third is capacity. A lot of CapEx projects have been either put on hold or delayed or shifted or cancelled as a result of the COVID era. And then now airports are struggling to catch up and bring those projects on time. The staff shortage is the main challenge that was faced during the last, specifically summer. And I recall my colleague Luis here, last May, the European ACI Council issued a statement warning travelers that summer in Europe will be very difficult and we will see a lot of congestions and as a result of staff shortage. And the statement also mentioned that it takes about 16 weeks from recruitment to deployment to bring back skilled labor or manpower in airports, whether airside or in the terminals. You really need training, you need certification, you need security clearance, and that takes time. We, at least in the kingdom here, tried during the last Hajj and summer season, to support airports, also different players, ground handlers, airliners in the ecosystem to accelerate the approval process, whether it's certification, security clearance, through digitized portals and programs to ensure that this process is minimized at the lowest.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's been reflected by the leaders of airports in major cities around the world, that it's ground handling that's been a major issue, Louise. But if you look at the impact that the pandemic had, we all remember those empty check-in desks, the runways at a standstill. What do you think the industry, in terms of airports, has learned from the pandemic to try and better equip it for what's to come?
Well, the last 2 years was incredible tough for the whole industry. I used to travel a lot even during the pandemic times, and even for experienced travel, it was so difficult to travel because the usual check-in process usually take 5 minutes, was taking 20 minutes per passenger, the security checks and others. That's why basically we have a very difficult period of time that the travel was difficult, and when we restarted to travel again, we are seeing the shortage of staff and the other things that has turned our lives a little bit more difficult. I think we had a great opportunity to learn with the process, and I think what ICAO did with the Council of Aviation Recovery Task Force, bring like some guidelines to the world, what we need to address as an airport and as an ecosystem in terms of the health and hygiene measures. Future pandemics will come, and you need to be ready to not commit the same mistakes we had during this pandemic in terms of the way that we act and react to the situation. The second point, I think, was a great opportunity for us as an airport to rethink ourselves and what we can do better. That's why the use of technology was something that was really impressive in evolved during this period of time, where the people are thinking about a more seamless process, how we can use the technology to improve. However, as we discussed it before here as a panel, the touch points that you have in an airport are so many stakeholders that you need to involve, from the check-in to the baggage, to the lounge, to the security. We need to find a way that we put that together as an ecosystem to be more seamless travel, and I think that is something is a challenge for the future for us.
I'll come to that in a second, John, but just in terms of demand, we heard yesterday from the World Tourism Organization about 65% of pre-pandemic levels travel is currently at. If you take this region, for example, you've got grand plans here in Saudi Arabia, you have a travel hub in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Istanbul, a little further afield. Do you think the demand is going to come for all of this, for all of these airports to be built and operated?
Well, we expected as a world basis that in 2024 we fully recovered from 2019 numbers. We are now behind because of Asia, especially because it's still China very close. But we expected that in 2024 we reach like the numbers that we have in 2019. In terms of the future, as I mentioned before, we will double the size by 2040 in terms of the industry. The airports need to invest around $2.4 trillion to cope with this growth. And with that, we have a lot of challenges ahead. How we can improve the seamless process at the airports, how we can cope with the new sustainability requirements. That's why the challenge is how we can better use our facilities, how we can speed the process. Airports are built not to be stagnated in the airport. You need to move on, you know. And I think the concept is that you need to move on fast. You need to make this happen. And technology investments need to be aligned with that.
And John, the airports need to move forward. I'm going to read something I wrote down from Paul Griffiths, the CEO of Dubai Airports. His presentation earlier, he said, quote, "The hardware is simply the means. Customer interaction with products should be as minimal as possible." And I'm talking to Paul shortly, so apologies if he thinks that this wasn't what he tried to say, but that's a direct quote. The hardware is simply the means. Customer interaction should be as minimal as possible. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. When you say the hardware, you're talking the airplane?
About the infrastructure of the airports, yeah.
So the infrastructure that's there, and I think we hit a little bit of it earlier. If we take technology and make security go away, make customs and immigration go away, turn the airplanes twice as fast as we do now. Instead of an hour and a half, you do it in 45 minutes. We don't need that much infrastructure to double. It's there. We have to figure out a way to use it much more efficiently, much faster turnarounds, get the airplanes up in the air as fast as we can. We need to have systems where we don't leave gates and we don't burn fuel on taxiways until we're ready for takeoff, right? We don't need a queue at the end of a runway. Let's take the infrastructure we have, maximize it, take that customer experience to that seamless journey where we don't have to take off our shoes and our belts and all of these things. Use that space that's there, maybe for revenue purposes, for lounges, whatever, generate it. The capital will come later on as we get these passengers going, we generate more revenue at the airports. But the airports right now are tremendous facilities already. We just don't operate them correctly. We need to focus on that efficiency of that airfield and how to make those airlines make more money.
Thank you, and Your Excellency, just to pick up on that, what we see now is airports are becoming destinations very much. That's what makes them stand out, but they're economically important as well. Here in Saudi Arabia, Her Highness Princess Haifa yesterday said the goal of the strategy by 2030 is to raise the contribution to GDP to about 10% from about 3% in 2019. How important will airports be in the aviation strategy?
Well, I think the aviation strategy in a holistic view is looking at all segments, whether it's airports, airlines. I always call it the 4 A's: airports, airlines, airplanes, and amenities. These are the key players that are, airports comprise of, or the aviation comprise of. Now, on the contribution side, the strategy calls for an investment, a total investment of about $100 billion in the aviation sector from today till the end of 2030. And this will mostly be in airports development, no airplanes, and the remaining other ecosystem components, whether it's MRO, cargo, ground handling, and other services that are being provided in the whole ecosystem. So the contribution of the aviation is integral to the GDP of the economy. Also the contribution to the manpower, the human capital. We expect about 1.1 million of direct and indirect new jobs that will be created by the aviation sector by end of 2030. The aviation is an enabler to all the remaining or other economic segments. When you come to a country, the first thing you see is an airport. In the kingdom, today we have 29 airports. The kingdom is a continent with 2.1 million square kilometers of an area. We expect to reach the 330 million passengers that we expect to expand our current airports, whether it's Riyadh as announced through King Salman's airport. Jeddah expansion is going to be closely similar. We're talking about 114 million passengers in Jeddah. We have the new modern airports in Red Sea and in Neom, and the upgrade of all the remaining domestic and regional airports to cater to this objective.
Thank you. And Louise, looking at the growth in airports, sustainability is a word we've heard a lot about here in recent days, and indeed in recent months with COP27 taking place not too far away in Egypt. Are airports and the people behind airports doing enough to try and think about the impact environmentally they're having on local communities as well? Because traditionally there's been a lot of resistance to airports putting down runways. Is there enough happening to try and make it more sustainable in the future?
Well, it's interesting because we are the first international aviation organization that we set up a target by 2050 to net zero carbon emissions. And that not come as a dream, comes with programs that we already implemented 10 years ago. That's why basically we started to work in the airport carbon accreditation that we developed around 10, 12 years ago. And an organization as us, that we have 2,000 members around the world that represents 96% of the global traffic, around 400 airports are already part of the program. And basically that represents around 50% of the traffic. That's why the airports are already engaged in sustainability. Of course, we need to continue to engage. We need to be enablers for the future of the aviation, because if you think about our footprint is less than 4%, but if you work together with the airlines, with the suppliers, with the engine manufacturers, how we can build up the future together, I think will be the better way. And the airports as enablers need to be engaged in this process, and we are doing everything we can to join all the forums as we can to facilitate that future for the economy, for the socio-economic benefits for the communities that we serve.
And John, the communities around airports are really important. Connectivity and trying to make an airport part of a wider system in an urban area. You mentioned that there won't be parking at NEOM Airport, so how will people get around? Do they use jetpacks? Do they use drones? What's the plan?
No, we're going to have an extensive rail system that will be in place in NEOM, and obviously the future of eVTOL, maybe a mode of transportation to get there. And if the destination is such that you want to drive or camp out in the mountains, maybe an electric vehicle. So when I say no parking, it'd be small parking. But from a sustainability perspective, the airports can drive sustainability. One, if you have green energy. If you have green energy, the airport can be pretty much 100% green. Battery-powered support equipment, hydrogen-powered backup generators, those kinds of pieces of equipment were good. The problem is the jet, obviously. The jet and biofuels are a great way to start working at it, but the future is hydrogen. The future is creating green hydrogen and creating an aircraft that can actually, a jet that can fly on it. There's fuel cells that are out there that can generate electricity, that can turn a propeller already. Limited, but technology will get us there. And you'll see in the future that Airbus and Boeing are both working very diligently on trying to perfect a hydrogen-powered jet. It's going to take some time, but biofuels are a great start to go forward.
And looking at connectivity at the moment, NEOM Airport, it's operational for domestic flights, is that right?
Yes.
You're looking to expand to international flights?
Absolutely. We view our airports as the front door to NEOM. Direct connectivity from NEOM to locations around the world is going to make NEOM. Without that, we know we will have some impacts to tourism and some things. So direct connectivity is the economic engine that is going to drive NEOM, especially the tourism industry. As we go forward, that connectivity is critical to the success, we believe, of NEOM, and we are going forward with that very strongly in NEOM. And again, there's a whole bunch of competition out there. We don't want to compete with them. We want to support NEOM, the airport, the airline, one unit to drive that connectivity to NEOM.
Brilliant, and I'll just pick up on that and finish off. We've got a couple of minutes, Your Excellency, with the strategy more broadly. When it comes to the aviation authority, it's not just airports, airlines as well, the planning of a new airline. Why is aviation so important to Saudi Arabia's future plans?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, aviation is the key enabler for all the remaining initiatives and programs of Vision 2030. And this is why we are focused on ensuring that we achieve our targets, bringing about 100 million passengers through tourism, about 37 million passengers for Umrah and Hajj, and about 70 million for domestic traffic, and remaining for business and other activities. So aviation is key pillar in achieving the Vision 2030 different programs. It is an enabler that will help and support other Vision 2030 programs.
Thank you very much, and we'll leave it with that with a few seconds to go. Thank you once again to my panel, His Excellency Abdulaziz bin Abdullah Al Duailij, President of the General Aviation Authority here in Saudi Arabia, Luis Felipe Oliveira, Director General of the Airports Council International, and John Selden, Chief Executive Officer of NEOM Airport. Thank you, and I'll hand back to Maria.
Thank you so much to Naweed and his panel. Fantastic. Once again, a round of applause for that panel. Well, we heard there from the CEO of NEOM Airport, and we will continue with this exciting theme. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a need for a civilizational revolution. We need to think in a less systematic way, and also more about really designing human-centric experiences without forgetting, of course, the world around us. Now, our next keynote speaker will tell us about an ambitious vision, giving us a very exciting glimpse about a destination for tomorrow, what that will look like, feel like, and where mobility, life, and work are completely reimagined. Very exciting indeed. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the Chief Executive of NEOM, Navmi Al Nasser. Welcome to the stage. Coming. I have sound. Do you have sound? Not yet, not yet. Technology is coming. Oh, we're bringing you a hand mic. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you, thank you. All right, here we go.
sectors that collectively will build up the whole economic system and model for NEOM. One of these sectors is tourism. So you can see where tourism fits. It's one of a much bigger economic model. However, our model also and our philosophy when it comes to tourism in NEOM, everything we are developing, such as the sectors I mentioned, they will be part of the tourism model. For example, we are going to build a renewable energy fully energized by solar, by wind, by green hydrogen. We will only use these three sources. So what does energy renewable have to do with tourism? When we go and build our solar panels, when we go and build our wind miles, when we go and build our green hydrogen, we build them to also be a destination for tourism. When they come and visit NEOM, they want to go and visit how solar panels look like. They would like to go and build and see and enjoy what we call windmills. We actually don't call solar panels in NEOM solar panels. We call them solar park, wind park. They will look beautiful. They will look things that people would like to go there and take a picture with. So that's what we are doing. Everything we are developing, we want it to be also a piece of art, a piece of attention, a piece of attraction to our tourism. So the mix of all these sectors are all there to serve tourism in NEOM. I'll give you an example or two. So we announced the start of what we call Oxagon. Oxagon in NEOM is the industrial area. It is the logistics area. It is the port of NEOM. It is where we are going to receive everything before it goes into NEOM. It is going to be where all the boats, all the ships, all transportation. It is going to be where all industries will be. Yet, there are tourists. When they come to NEOM, we would like to see them spending a day or two in Oxagon. Why? Because they want to go there and see the future of industry in the world. Everything in NEOM is built for the future era. We want them to come and see how the future seaports will operate and how they will look like. We want them to see the first logistical hub that's built worldwide, that's going to be built on a floating city. It's not on land, it's a floating city for a better sustainability. We want it to be a tourism destination. If we go and look for the line, and you have heard about our line, we want people to go there. They don't have to live in the line, but they want to go there and see what the line is all about. How does it look? All of these assets we are producing will be part of our tourism extension and our tourism destination. So in the line, we want people to come there and see how our sport stadiums are built and where are they built, at what level. By the way, the sport stadiums in NEOM that is in the line is a 300-meter high, loose and hanging in the air. So people would like to go and say, let's go and see what this stadium is. But we did not build it loose just for the sake of having it loose. We believe that's the best use of space for a stadium. As John mentioned, our CEO for the airport in the previous session, we are going to be on a full mobility system that is no gasoline, no gas. It's all either green hydrogen or renewable energy. And people would like to and would have to exercise and enjoy the experience of how this is. What is this new lifestyle that NEOM will be? Another example is, which is something between tourism and industry. We are building, as we speak, the largest marina on earth. The marina will have over 8,000 berths to receive all yachts, all boats from all over the world. We're building it in a different model, in a model where it makes people say, how is this going to operate? But it's going to be the most efficient marina that the world will have experienced. So another thing that we have in tourism in NEOM is not only future, but history. NEOM is a 5,000-year-old region. NEOM, where all religions have passed through. NEOM is where prophets have passed through and lived there. So there we will blend the past and the future. And that will be a very exciting experience to our tourism and tourists to go. We have 15 islands we are developing today, and developing an island is not just an easy task. We are building these islands as a collection of 15 islands as phase one. And the idea behind it is we want to go back to the time where in our childhood we used to travel to Greece. And one exciting part of going to Greece at my childhood time is we used not to visit an island. We used to visit a group of islands, and people would be jumping from an island to an island. That's our approach for our islands. Another aspect of NEOM that it's going to be part of tourism, but not a tourism by design, that is our commitment in NEOM that 95% of the whole land of NEOM, which is equal to 25,000 square kilometers, is going to be a nature reserve, untouchable. We started it, we opened it, and there we are going to bring two parts of it. We are rewilding this wild area. We have already brought animals that have been living there and disappeared centuries ago. We are re-bringing them here. And we are also re-greening NEOM. We are going to plant and seed 100 million trees in NEOM. And that by itself is a massive exercise that will bring NEOM back to what it used to be. Before I conclude, if someone says, what is so special about NEOM? And let me tell you three words. Location. We are 2 hours away from Europe. Believe it or not, we see Africa, I mean within miles. We are a connection of 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. And that location is so unique. Climate is superb. For those that have not been there, when we are done and we are ready to receive you as visitors and as tourists, you will get a feel for what that means. We are building an airport that is at the end of our line, and it's going to be a very unique design of an airport. It will be the first airport yet to be built where the airport is part of our line. So airports, airlines, airplanes land, and then their gates open to the line. So passengers are yet to leave the plane, and as they walk out, all they see is the line where 9 million people will be living in. And the passengers, you can imagine the experience of passengers after 9-hour flight, and the door is open, and they just get out to the line and they just experience it. We are also establishing our own airline, like John mentioned. Why? Because we want to make sure tourists coming to NEOM as a destination will have no stop in the middle. It's a non-stop flight from wherever they are departing to come to NEOM. To us, that's very, very important to gain and give our tourists and our visitors the experience of life. Nothing worse in traveling, and you are all, like all of us, traveling from a place to a place. It's the challenge we have is when you have to keep changing airports and airplanes. So when you all are ready to come and visit with us, that's what you'll see. I would like to leave you with this. We have announced the launching of Trojena, and many of you may have seen it when we announced it. We are calling it the treasure of Neom. It's really the jewel of Neom. Why? It's the place we're going to show ski resorts in Saudi Arabia, ski resorts in the Middle East at a height of 2,700 meters. People, when we said that in our opening, they said, "Are you sure? Skiing in Saudi Arabia?" It is. We are sure because as we speak, we are constructing the ski resorts. It skis, it snows 3 months a year, and when it snows, I can tell you, it snows. We get overwhelmed, we get covered with snow, and you see families and everybody go to the mountain. We have a lake that we are building at 2,600 meters high. As we speak, we are digging the mountains to build a 3 kilometers long lake, 600 meter wide lake. We're building a skating resorts over the lake. So it's not just a lake, but skating. That's why we call Trojena as Trojena. We have Fualt, that is basically a complete city that will contain 9 hotels, all inside the mountain of Trojena. So it is a very pleasant place where I can assure you, when we open these facilities, you may remember my remarks, but even if you don't, I will remind you of how these places are going to look. So I hope I'm leaving you with a better understanding of our tourism model, blending our economic model with tourism sector as a one big sector that bring up Neom as a destination of 7 million visitors by 2030 and 15 million visitors by 2040. I will leave you with a film on Trojena. Thank you.
Journey to New Heights, a unique global destination driven by cutting-edge technology in Neom. This is Trojena. Breathtaking architecture and innovative engineering fold seamlessly into the natural landscape, ascend to a vertical village, a portal connecting the digital and the physical. The seasonal climate provides a multitude of high-altitude adventures in the Arabian Peninsula with the region's first outdoor ski experience. Enjoy the buzz of world-class entertainment, the crisp mountain air, and the world's most advanced health and well-being center nourish both body and soul. And as night falls, you can witness the stars as you've never seen them before. Welcome to Trojena, the mountains of Neom.
I think the only word there is wow. What an amazing project. What an amazing presentation there. Thank you so much, Nadim and Nasser, CEO of Neom. And even before I arrived here in Saudi Arabia, my colleagues in Istanbul had said, or the journalists I spoke to, wow, ask them about Neom. It is so exciting. And to actually see it and hear from the CEO is another level. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we continue. More excitement to come. And in the coming decade, travel and tourism is projected to grow at an average annual rate of 5.8%, more than double the 2.7 average percent annual growth estimations for the overall economy. Now, taking away the learning of this two-day program and with this exciting vision of traveling for a better future, let's now focus on ambitious investments and partnerships required to build a more resilient, inclusive and sustainable sector. And for that, please welcome once again the BBC's Zainab Badawi to the stage and her panel. Welcome to all of you.
Microphone, please work. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Maria. Assalamu alaikum, sabah al khair. I'm Zainab al Badawi in Arabic, or Zainab Badawi. My pleasure to be moderating this session with this wonderful panel I have behind me. The Minister of Spain just said to me now that there are more women than men on the panel. That's the new Saudi Arabia. So, anyway, I'm not going to talk for very long, but just to set the scene, we're going to be talking about traveling for a better future. You know, the Wttc provide us with all these wonderful statistics, and one that we're going to be discussing is the fact that, of course, the tourism sector in the coming decade, travel and tourism, is expected to create 126 million new jobs, and also it's going to grow at an annual average rate of nearly 6%, which is nearly twice as much as the overall economy. But we want to make sure that that expanding world of travel and tourism is going to be done in a way which creates a better future for all of us, travellers and also the host people. So we're going to be looking at the issues of how do we get better investment, how do we achieve our sustainability goals so that we have a resilient, inclusive and sustainable travel and tourism sector. Without further ado, I'm going to talk to my wonderful panel on my right here. I'll introduce them as I come and speak to all of them. Lindiwe Sisulu. Lindiwe, you are South African political aristocracy, the daughter of the great Walter Sisulu, of course, who was so instrumental in bringing South Africa to independence. And you yourself have been quite a force also in the nation. You have held many posts in government, Minister of Home Affairs, Minister of Defence, Minister of International Relations, and now you occupy the portfolio of Minister of Tourism, which you assumed earlier this year. Yeah. You've launched this new campaign in South Africa, which is Live Again. I think that the South African economy depends for about 6% of its GDP on tourism. Yeah. I'm going to ask all of my panel just very quickly to set the scene so our audience know what you are doing in your country. So, Minister, your time starts now. Just give us a quick overview of your vision.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. Good afternoon now. We are gearing ourselves up after COVID, and as you know, we were the hardest hit out of this pandemic. And we are preparing ourselves now to make sure that we have a sustainable industry. And we have launched several programs. One of them is Live Again, because when we were in lockdown under COVID, we were affected very badly. So we've begun to live again, and we want to ensure that we have sustainability so that should we have another pandemic, we're ready for it. We've learned from where we've come from, and we would like to make sure that in future we don't suffer the backlash that we've suffered right now. But beyond that, we are making sure that we are in touch with our neighbors, and hopefully soon we'll have a single entry visa for most of our countries around us. Okay. Ease of travel is, of course, very important, and we are partnering with various other countries to increase our airlift. I could go on and on and on.
Okay, well, you'll have a chance. You'll have a second bite at the cherry. But thank you for that opening remark. Thank you. On my left is the Minister of Tourism, Trade and Industry and Tourism for Spain, Reyes Maroto. And just by the way, Reyes is going to be speaking in Spanish, so please do reach for your translations. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, Minister, but she does understand English, so she won't need to wear them. You've been Minister of Tourism and Travel and Trade and Industry since 2018, and we know that Spain is one of the most popular destinations for tourists. I think it accounts for about 12% of your GDP. But again, you've obviously suffered a little bit during COVID, but just give us an idea of how you want to build your vision for tourism, because you've got this 2030 strategy, which has got 3 pillars. Just very quickly articulate those pillars for us, Minister.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, felicidades a la organización por convocarnos un año más para hablar de viajes y turismo a nivel mundial. España efectivamente es un líder turístico mundial, pero la pandemia también nos hizo que repensásemos el turismo y que la salida de la pandemia tenía que ser distinta. Nosotros estamos apostando por un modelo turístico basado en la calidad, y que sea protagonista de los desafíos que estamos abordando en el mundo, el cambio climático, la digitalización y también la inclusión. Queremos atraer a los jóvenes, a las mujeres. El sector turístico sin duda es una palanca para la modernización de nuestros países y por lo tanto calidad, calidad, calidad creo que es el futuro del turismo en España y a nivel mundial.
Thank you very much indeed. I don't speak Spanish, and unfortunately this did not register in English, but I thank you very much indeed for your opening comments. All the same, Minister. Let me come to you, José Al-Fakhri. You are the CEO of the Saudi Tourism Development Fund, and you have, as we heard a little bit earlier, this great vision to ensure that you attract lots more visitors to Saudi Arabia. I believe the goal is about 10 million per annum. You want to also increase tourism to 10% of GDP. It's currently at about 3%. So just very quickly, set the scene for us. How are you going to do that? Or
Absolutely.
what do you want to do, actually?
Absolutely. Welcome to Arabia. We're very happy to host you in Saudi Arabia again, and welcome for whoever here for the first time. When the government approved the National Tourism Strategy, part of it was creating the Tourism Development Fund. This is a clear evidence by the Saudi government to show the commitment for the private sector. We are here today as TDF, and we are one of the sponsors of this great event to show commitment for private sector, for international operators, international investors, and local to team up together to build and enhance the offering in the country. This is our second operational year, and since inception, we've been doing great. We've built a great track record. Since inception, we have committed almost 7 billion riyal on our second operational year. If you take the project size that we're talking about almost 28 billion riyal only on the second operational year. We've been working with who's who globally in adventure, entertainment, hospitality to enhance and to bring the right offering. What we're trying to do is to leverage on what we have in terms of assets, heritage, the great culture and great welcoming people, in addition to focusing on SMEs. And I think this subject was discussed several times before, helping entrepreneurs and SMEs to expand the offering and to focus on authenticity, also helping people like my colleague here and others to bring the right offering to the market.
Thank you very much indeed, José. Thank you for those opening remarks. Let me go to Pansy Ho now. He's Group Executive Chairman and MD of Shuntak Holdings Limited, which was established back in 1962. So actually you're celebrating your 60th birthday in a way, but you actually were listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in 1972. And you've got this vast portfolio of real estate and infrastructure and travel and hospitality sector, and you do just about everything possible in the private sector. So just give us an idea of how you see this issue of traveling better in the future from the private sector's point of view.
Okay, so I'm here to share my direct and personal experience. I work in my family, founded now a listed company in Hong Kong and also a small conglomerate that was established some 60 years ago by my father. And it was done because at that time, Macau was still under the Portuguese rule and needed desperately to have a pillar industry, and they have chosen therefore to utilize gambling or gaming, developing out casinos. And my father won a monopoly license, and we had since then been a critical factor in helping to grow out the whole economic fabric and also, of course, our own business. Now it's on to our second generation, and I'm taking over and running this small conglomerate business now into a bigger tourism-led investment company that is starting to help innovate and also kind of transform Macau into a more holistic tourism destination. In a way, my job is not unlike, some of our ministers, excellencies on stage in a way, because I would have to be working very closely in collaboration with the government in crafting public-private partnerships. So already over 30-some years of my own direct experience, it was helping to grow international points of promotion abroad for Macau. It was investing to the effect of some over 5 billion now, 5 billion in US dollars terms, and also making sure that we are going to be engaging the community. And then we are building the whole infrastructure from the transportation linking Hong Kong, Macau, and the different airports in the Pearl River Delta now to going on the bridge, the super bridge linking Hong Kong, Macau, and Zhuhai, to developing out all the non-gaming sectors, including MICE, arts and culture, entertainment and sports tourism, and of course building the hardwares in terms of the facilities, the hotels, the resorts, and the casinos. And the next phase is going into another decade of new growth.
We'll ask you about the next phase. It's just setting the scene at the moment. Thank you very much indeed, Tansi. Federico Gonzalez, you are CEO of the Group CEO of the Radisson Hotel. Just some brief opening comments about how you are really very much pursuing a sustainable agenda in your group.
Yes, thank you everybody. Congratulations to you all and to the Wttc for this fantastic event. Radisson is trying actually to become one of the top 3 brands in the world. Okay, today I'm very happy to be here with some of the destinations. We are strong in Saudi, but we can become stronger. We are strong in South Africa, a country where we started many years ago, where we have great hotels, and we recently entered Spain, but we have now 9 hotels and hopefully many more in the future. I think, beyond sustainability, I think in order to become one of those top 3 hotel companies in the world, we need to make sure we have the right brands, that we have the right partnership with every single destination. That means every single destination we need to work together to make things work. And then, as we will talk later on sustainability, it's critical that we start moving and making steps in the next 2-3 years. We are all fully aligned, but we'll talk later on the end vision. But before the 50, I may not be here in 50, so we need to make sure that we make concrete things that we can talk later during the next 1, 2, and 3 years. That will make us.
Why won't you be here in 2050?
Yeah, that's right.
They have to create an enabling environment for the travel and tourism sector to flourish. So obviously, as a government voice, how do governments go about doing that in ensuring that there's a proper regulatory framework for investment, that you have effective private-public partnerships, and also, of course, the important role of the government in ensuring that the infrastructure is there, which is proven quite a challenge, I'm sorry to say, in South Africa at the moment.
It is proving to be quite a problem for the whole of Southern Africa. We've spent a lot of time trying to work out how we can attract people to South Africa, especially investors, by assuring them about the political stability that we have, assuring them about the infrastructure that we're putting in place, availability of flights, and all of those things that would make them eager to come and invest in our own country. We've taken note of the fact that we need to do something about ease of travel, which means that our visa regime has to be stepped up. We are offering a healthier visa regime than we've had. We are working together with our neighbors to make sure that there is a possibility of making sure that the Southern African travel regime is in concert with our own policies. We assure them that we are a much safer place than they might have imagined a few years ago. We are working on creating a climate and an environment that is safe. We've just come out of Omicron, and I know you don't want to go there, but we've learned a lot from being isolated, and we've worked very hard to ensure that the environment is friendly, and the visa regime is, manageable, and the political situation very good.
Yeah, you've got to get people into the country. Of course, yeah.
And we're the friendliest country in the world, by the way.
You are a very friendly country. I'm a great admirer of your country. Minister Reyes Maroto, so you are part of the governing socialist coalition in Spain. And so I want to ask you in particular, because when we talk about developing tourism, we must ensure that there is an equitable distribution of the profits of the travel and tourism sector. That's one point I want you to look at very briefly. But also, I talked about the creation of new jobs in the travel and tourism sector, but there are lots of vacancies at the moment. A lot of people don't want to take up the jobs, and you've got to ensure that you match the skills of the people in the community to the jobs that are needed for the tourism sector to flourish. So the future of technologies is very, very important in this regard. I've given you so many questions there, but since you're answering in Spanish, by the way, the translation is on Channel 1. Please answer those. Thank you.
Con las empresas intentamos encontrar las mejores cualificaciones. El ámbito de la digitalización es muy importante, el sector se está digitalizando de una manera muy acelerada. Ya hablamos del turismo 4.0 y sin duda esa tecnología tiene que estar también al servicio de los profesionales para ofrecer la mejor experiencia. El turismo es la industria de la felicidad, pero también los trabajadores son una parte muy importante de la experiencia que el turista recibe en el destino y por lo tanto creo que
to train every year 100,000 Saudis. This is really important. The other point is 60% of Saudis are below 35, and therefore, by nature, they are digital native. So this is a great opportunity for us to focus and to be digital driven. Back to your question on investment. So we already have identified the gaps in each destination within Saudi Arabia. We're working very closely with our partners, private sector, and with the ecosystem and larger ecosystem within the government to fill up whatever is missing in each gap, in each destination. And therefore, so it's a backwards process. We use the gaps and then we fill it up with, be it hospitality, entertainment, adventure, and so on. Also, we're very keen on the supply chain. We're very keen on the services. So one of the initiatives for the coming years is to enhance the offering onto transportation from tech perspective as well. So everything we're trying to do is sustainability, ESG, and high tech. And again, this will be discussed with our partners, how to implement and to some extent agree, as my colleague mentioned, to agree on the standard of sustainability, standard of to what extent we want to go tech in each property or in each service.
Right, thank you very much indeed. I don't know if your audio is working. It may be something that the sound people wish to address. Did you hear what Wttc said? Not very clearly. Okay, fine. I heard you. Let me come to you, Federico, because when we talk about the travel and tourism sector from the hotel's point of view, you've got quite a few people you've got to think about. You've got to think of your customer experience and how you achieve all your goals that you set out in the beginning. You've got to think about your staff and whether they've got the right skills and so on. You've got to think about the environment in which you operate, the country in which you operate. So really, how do you balance all those factors and unite them so that you meet your ambitious goals on the environment, sustainability?
Yes, thanks for the question. I think there are three things. One is you need to have clear vision from a corporate point of view and be able then to adapt it to each of the single destinations. Like, for example, we always say it's important to have a good partnership with the public sector. That is a generic statement, requires investment, requirement time. Now we need to make it concrete. It's different in Saudi, in Spain, in South Africa. That collaboration needs to be different. And I think the beauty and the challenge in all those collaborations is to be concrete. You know, I think we expect from the governments to put the infrastructure to enable, the investments that we need to make, but then we need to make life easy. You know, I think one of the biggest nightmares that any hotel operator now happens is how many permits you need to pass to open a hotel. Nearly in any country of the world, is the amount of people that want to add value to any single authority or authorization of a hotel is a nightmare. But we try to work with every single authority to do it. I think second is, for example, when you talk about sustainability. We do it via, for example, partnership with the Alliance or with Wttc to make sure that we have a global vision, a global standard that then we need to apply into each concrete sector. For example, Wttc, and supported by many hotel companies, launched the Hotel Sustainability Basics. Now we need to work in concrete terms on how do we make it Saudi apply them, Spain apply them, or South Africa implement it. And then the last one that I think is very important is people. We have a very clear philosophy for people, but I think at the same time, the industry in general will need to become more flexible and more generous. We just opened, for example, in Morocco 1 month ago, one nursery in one of the hotels. And it was critical to make sure that people would be able to have enough flexibility to work in the hotel during long hours. I think those kind of examples will be needed to make sure that the hotel career, that is a fantastic career where you can grow a lot, but we need to enable and support the people to be able to still have a life together with that.
Thank you very much indeed. Tansy Ho, you said in your opening remarks, you talked about the need for effective public-private partnerships to achieve your goals. I just wonder if you could tell us from your perspective what you are doing in that regard and just, what is important to make sure that these are effective. Just a quick example.
Very quick, yes. Indeed, I like what was being said earlier about generosity, about caring, and that's exactly what a tourism enterprise needs to think long, ahead before you even enter into this industry sector, in my opinion. Tourism is a long-term investment. This is not the type of investment you go in, you buy, and you sell. Well, of course, there are people doing that, but in my practical and direct experience, we have been with Macau for 60 years. We even invest in Portugal, also in hospitality and gaming for 30 years, just having our concession renewed, very happily. So the importance is to really build up, basically this being your base. It is where you go and where you work together with the public sector especially is a long-term relationship. And you want to nurture it, you want to continue and take a self-initiative that this is not going to be a regulatory concept, this is a partnership concept, and you want to define exactly what are common goals. And we are the people who will be directly putting together our campaign, also for the staffs, for instance, to participate so that the CSR is not done as a charity, but rather as really being building out part of the whole community engagement and interaction.
Great, got it. Okay, thanks. Well, we are almost out of time, so I'm going to ask all of you to very quickly just give us your button-up takeaway message for this fine audience you can see before you. We've had a lot of discussions these last 2 days. So Minister Reyes Maroto from Spain, just what do you think we should all take away from the discussions that we've had? What's the most important?
Well, I would leave two messages. The first one is very closely related to this very panel. We need to invest in our future and in the future of our industry, and I believe it is a safe investment. This environment of stability in our business that we need to offer from our policies is crucial for it to become one of the elements in the future talks. The second one is obviously the fact that tourism pushes economies forward. When the pandemic situation arose, the global economy stopped. So I do believe that tourism is something that will push for modernization, and that thanks to the pandemic, we were able to reassess the value that tourism has with respect to the global economy. We need to make tourism a political priority and a priority for the youth and women to incorporate as workforce in this sector.
Thank you. Al-Fakhri from the Tourism Development Fund, Saudi Arabia, your takeaway message, please.
I will put it as a recommendation. I would invite every single investors globally to seize the opportunity and to capture the opportunities that we are offering as we speak in the country. I'm afraid it will be too late for some investors who are lagging behind to capture the potential that we are offering. Thank you.
God, that was quick. Thank you so much. Yeah, great. Federico Gonzalez from the Radisson Hotel Group.
Yes, I would build on what you have just said. Is I think the opportunity in this country is amazing. It's phenomenal. I would invite any other destinations to have the same level of ambition. And I take the invitation. We need to sit down now and work on the execution for the next 2 years, make it concrete, so we can show to the world what can happen.
Very
quickly.
nice. And I've stayed in your hotels. Very nice indeed. Perhaps you'll upgrade me to a suite next time.
I will.
Fine, thank you. Tansy Ho from Shuntak Holdings Limited, very quickly.
We think that the tourism industry is the peace industry. So this is the one industry that should not be contentious, and we have to bring all the stakeholders together, working harmoniously, using our own shared resources. The planet belongs to all of us, and we have the duty, we have the obligation to preserving it, to protecting it, our culture, and also our nature. And that is how we can build this industry together, but also then make the planet a beautiful place.
Lindiwe Sisulu, you opened, you closed.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for their contribution, and we have very good working relations with Radisson, and we're hoping to have good relations with you. We reside in South Africa, a beautiful country. We want to invite all of you, investors in all airlines, to come to South Africa so that we can show the world there are beautiful parts of the world. And I'd like to say in closing, I know you're very edgy about this, that we've got to be very careful about these great disruptors such as we had in Omicron, that we should set up stations where we can actually monitor and be able to advise our tourists where to travel to and what the situation is, because we felt particularly let down by the world when we were blamed for Omicron. And we are still unhappy about that.
Sure,
I think that there needs to be communication on matters of this nature so that we don't suffer the downside of something that is actually a national, international problem.
I know you felt very strongly about that in South Africa. Let us hope that is all behind you. Thank you very much indeed to my panel. Certainly we had common goals, common objectives, and I think the power of tourism has been very amply demonstrated by all my panel. Thank you to all of you for your attention. From me, goodbye. Thank you. Do you want to shake hands?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. The amazing Zainab Badawi from the BBC and her fantastic panel, and I loved what we heard there. The tourism industry is the peace industry, absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very exciting next session. Now, we have a one-on-one conversation, the sustainability movement. Now, this one-on-one conversation with Edward Norton will focus on his personal experience as a storyteller, environmental activist, and also social entrepreneur. Now, Mr. Norton has and continues to play a very exciting and important role in advocating conservation, the shift also to renewable energy, as well as driving important social impact through affordable housing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Edward Norton and Fahad Hamidadin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Let's give the audience some time to take their seats. Edward.
Great to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you with us. I'll call you Ed, or I'll call you Abu Atlas. Well, in our culture, they call me Abu Sara because we take pride in being named after our eldest son or daughter. So him and I agreed that I call him Abu Atlas as well.
He'll like that. Yeah.
I hope he's watching. Yesterday we had over 1 million online viewers, and I think the number is exceeding today. Not I think, I know actually. We've hit 7 million views online. So I'm so excited to be sitting with you, and I am more excited after you and I had the preparatory session yesterday. It's nothing less than admirable on what you've done and what you're doing and what you've committed yourself to. Many people know you as an actor, as a star. Maybe not what you've done in the acting is definitely making you a star, but probably using the hospitality language, I would say 5 stars for what you're doing on sustainability. With that, I would like to maybe ask you what got you interested in sustainability and what got you interested in the tourism space of what you've done in Kenya.
Thank you. I mean, first off, let me say I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to the travel and tourism industry. I do actually think in some ways travel and film are close cousins in the sense that I think people in their fantasy lives, they're looking for expansion. Expansion of their mental landscapes, expansion of their sense of the world. And I think we go to films in part because it offers us this portal into a wider world. you know, of the actual world, but also of the emotional world. And if film is really working, it creates an empathy experience, right? If you're really getting into a film, you're feeling a sense of transparency. You're seeing yourself and your own experience somehow in the film, or you're projecting yourself into the experience of the other people when it's best. And I think that's what we want out of travel too, right? We don't want to be tourists. That's the really interesting thing, is we talk about tourism, but lots of people emotionally, they don't want to be a tourist. What they're actually seeking is an experience of another place that makes them feel like they've been somewhere wider, right? And in that sense, films, as a filmmaker and as a, let's say, a host within the tourism industry, you're trying to do the same thing, which is give someone the experience of having had an authentic emotional experience almost, right? And so in both tourism and film, there's a little bit of illusion, a little bit of magic, right? But we are trying to create empathy. And the best value of film and the best value of tourism are not passive experiences. They're actually, the ones we remember are the ones where we have an active experience. And I think I've always felt that travel, for me, travel has been one of the experiences of my life that's widened my sense of empathy, my sense of connection to other people, because it's just a very, very different experience to encounter people one-on-one and see them within their lives, see the textures of other places. It opens you up. And I think, so I think we're actually all talking the same language. I really do. I don't think it's that much of a stretch for people in film and people in travel to talk to each other. I come to an engagement with travel and tourism and sustainability mostly through my family. My father's a career environmental advocate and organization builder. But I've been lucky. I have family in Kenya. I have family in a lot of places, and I've always been engaged in environmental conservation, biodiversity work, because it was almost the family business, honestly. But I came over time, over 20 years of working on community-based conservation in Kenya, in which one of the opportunities, you know, we've learned in the 21st century, we've learned that conservation can't just be about walling off certain areas. The needs of 8 billion people are going to supersede our ability to protect nature from people. So if there's something we've learned that's a new modality of the 21st century, it's that we have to make our economies and our industries have to be sustainable. We can't protect nature from them, right? They have to be integrated with ecological sustainability. And we've seen that the best thing to get frontline communities and critical ecosystems engaged in protecting them in good stewardship is to create a preferential economic outcome from protecting an ecosystem, right? And tourism can be one of those we can't write donation checks ad infinitum. We can't just fund conservation through philanthropy, even though that's important now. We need actual natural resource-based industries to deliver the incentive for stewardship, right? And tourism, there are many of the best last places of the world that people want to go and see and experience, and those tourism industries need to provide that preferential economic opportunity. And I've seen that in Kenya. You have the wildlife tourism, ecotourism, right? And so I've really looked at what are people saying about what the benefits of tourism are for communities and environment, and what's the actuality. And sometimes, you know, if I can be a little provocative, for all the good things that tourism can do and does do, we also have to confront that the tourism industry can be an extractive industry every bit as much as mining. If it's not properly held to account, there can be incredibly negative downstream effects to both communities and environment if the tourism industry isn't held to account. And the thing is, the baseline of what we call sustainable operations within tourism can and should be elevated substantially from what is too superficial a set of commitments right now, and it can be done without hurting the bottom line. That's the thing. The incremental cost to the industry of raising its operational standards really substantially is totally insignificant. And it can and should be done because the industry's got to protect the resources of community and environment that are key to its survival.
Whoa, a lot to build on. But I think what you said, first, people want to imagine and experience immersion. This is the new luxury, probably. So for us, a new destination, we are planning to launch a program called Live Like a Local, hopefully to address and fulfill those passionate travelers. You also talked about the comparatives between those two industries, film and destinations. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And you also talked about eco-friendly destinations and eco-lodges. How much, I want to pause here a bit and build on your call that might be controversial. But really, how much of those are real from what you've seen, and how much of this is greenwashing?
There's a lot of greenwashing in the industry. It just has to be said. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of operators claiming community economic benefit, community employment. And I've thought about it a lot. And then you look under the hood, which I have done a lot over the last 20 years. And I've come to believe that there are kind of, I used to think it was 3. Now I think there are 4 pillars that every tourism business, whether it's, as you call an SME, like whether it's a boutique luxury safari lodge in Kenya with 20 beds, or it's a large-scale, hotel chain, right? And I think the things that need to be confronted more specifically are these, if I'd suggest them. Where does your energy come from? The industry could source its energy renewably, and in remote locations, the industry is not confronting the technical challenge of solar storage, photovoltaic, battery storage, EV operations, induction kitchens. There's much too much use of diesel, petrol, generators, etc., especially in the remote location industry. We need to electrify the industry in a much more committed way. The second one is water, and I think this is a big one. We are in a world in which wars are going to get fought over water. This is one of the most critical national security constrained resources in the world, and it's only going to get more intense. We cannot have tourism industries that are not addressing how they source their water and making more proactive moves to do innovative things like rainwater catchment and storage. There is much too much using of pipelines and pumps to community water sources. And there's non-sustainable versions of luxury. If you are in a dry desert savanna boutique 5-star safari lodge and you have an ensuite plunge pool, that is a non-sustainable definition of luxury. And operators need to communicate more clearly to their guests where they are and what makes sense as a definition of luxury. And if you're going to have it, you better be really transparent about how you collected that water for an ensuite plunge pool from a rainwater catchment, etc. Because you can't call yourself an ecotourism lodge and take your water, truck your water in through a diesel tanker truck from a community source. And that goes on all the time. So how do we source our water needs to be more confronted. I think local employment is another one that people make lots of claims about, but the truth is real local training and capacity building is a terrible shortfall in most of the places I've been. They put local people on the front of house kind of stuff and don't really train people up. And I think deeper commitment to local training, local capacity building so that local employment, real local employment represents a much higher percentage of total employment is another one. I think the final one is really carbon offset. We need to work toward net zero. The travel industry flies a lot of people around. But it is really easy now. If you look at software platforms like Watershed and others, it is really easy to do full scope analysis on the carbon footprint from travel of guests coming in and to buy offsets to neutralize that from high quality forest carbon projects or other forms of carbon offset. The incremental cost of that, number one, you could pass it on to the guests themselves. It's so small, it could easily be a pass-through. But frankly, the industry could bear that cost without even noticing it, and it would be a great thing for all dimensions of the travel industry to do full scope analysis on the travel represented by their guests and play an active role in doing those offsets. I think those are, to me, the 4 areas that we need to get toothier about what our standards are.
Well, that's a lot to take. 3 things probably I would like to say.
Yeah.
Number 1, we announced the Sustainability Tourism Global Center. I don't know where Gloria is, but I see Paul Polman. It's great to have you with us. I really think that you should be engaged because many people think there are many theorists. You're not. You're a practitioner, you've done it, and you have some answers, practical answers on how to do it. Point number 2, I really want to side with the hospitality sector and side with my investors, because those are my customers. And I think, talking to someone like Tony Anthony from Marriott, he's telling me, new hotels, look at the Diplomatic Quarter Marriott next door. It's, on your first point, the source of energy is 100% solar. You go to the rooftop, it's all solar. But they also talked about, he talked about the single use of plastic, he talked about food wastage. And he said food wastage is sits at the top priority for hospitality, and it's very rightfully pointed out. And then he said, on scope 3 engagements, when it comes to energy sources, you have to talk to municipalities to address the power grid, because there is a limit to how much investors can do and operators on hospitality can do. So on that, maybe this brings me to point 3. While we're building giga projects, listening to you stresses that these are giga responsibilities. And as we open next quarter, the Wttc project, which we call a testament, an embodiment of regenerative tourism, the true test will be on those 4 and the waste as well. And last week, during COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, one of the speakers pointed out that the single country that has measured the baseline of sustainability carbon emission, greenhouse carbon emission, is Saudi. And the reason we did it, again, it's not just to brag, it's simply to say, this is our starting point, these are the numbers, and this is what will guide our regulations, our asks of our partners, and our incentives to make that happen. And I probably would like to, before I move, I would really, really hope that you find an engagement role for you in whatever Saudi is doing. Because this is hopefully a test bed, not for Saudi, but for the world.
Thank you. And I think there's a really important distinction you made, because the truth is there's many dimensions of the travel industry, and you're absolutely right that within the, let's call it the larger scale hotel industry, waste absolutely needs to be a pillar. I couldn't agree with that more. And there's so many exciting things going on in terms of use of food waste to create usable agricultural byproduct and composting, all kinds of stuff. So there's so much opportunity within waste for closed loop, positive, restorative engagement with waste. And I think that is very, very important. I think too that the truth is energy applies everywhere. How we source our energy does apply everywhere. I think I've been lucky, and I get to travel to some of the more boutique-y places and more not off-grid, but some of those challenges are different. But I think it's very good to highlight waste. And I think, to your point, when you look at like your giga projects and things like that, you know, we know that 40% of all carbon emissions come from the built environment, the way we build and the way we operate large-scale development. So there's no getting away from also the need in new construction to incorporate, you know, the most cutting-edge standards on energy efficiency.
Can you read who's calling?
John Pagano.
John Pagano, we're missing you on stage, but we'll make sure we pass Edward's comments to you because he's the one basically leading the Red Sea project.
Oh, okay,
and
good.
our flagship. By the way, he's calling. I didn't ask. I mean, it wasn't a static message. It's not a stage thing. It's just perfect timing, wasn't it?
By the way, let's just say right off the bat, I've served as the United Nations Ambassador for Biodiversity for 15 years, right? If you were to look at an ocean biodiversity, you know, like the Red Sea is, you know, a legendary ocean ecosystem and one of the most famous dive spots in the world, right? Here's an incredible opportunity for coastal travel, tourism development to lean into ecological biodiversity protection and sustainability, because protection of the Red Sea ecosystem is an incredibly important, that would fit into any critical ecosystem portfolio, and the opportunity to specifically design coastal tourism modality to make sure that it doesn't give a superficial protective integration with the Red Sea itself. I mean, that's a real greenfield opportunity.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, protection is one thing. I think regenerative is just trying to make the place even better than it was. And here comes the initiatives we're trying to do on rewilding. We've announced the rewilding of 21 species, 15 of which are mammals and 7 are birds. 3 of them are extreme endangered species. So, but it's not just talk. I think the effort there started yielding results. Last August, we saw the birth of the first Arabian leopard twin, and we've announced the hunter cheetah next. So hopefully that becomes part of what we look at sustainability. While we start with community first, residents first, we end with planet and wildlife. On that, I want to maybe, you told me about the experiment on water and what you have, because many people tell you, can you do it? And you talked to me about the case study that you've had put in place. Could you please shed some light on it?
Yeah, sure. It's a good single point example, but let's just take, for example, within the admittedly boutique slice of the industry that is, let's call it ecotourism or, you know, wilderness tourism. But look, we know that this is big business because Wilderness Safaris is owned by the private equity firm TPG. Singita is owned by a couple of billionaires. You know, we know that this is big business as well as boutique 5-star, right? So there's a lot of what I would call high-end safari-style tourism that asserts all kinds of conservation bona fides that I think are unforgivably superficial, honestly. I think it's one of the areas in which
Some say you're tough, you call them out. Apparently there are many tough people.
Yeah, but a place that I think there's a serious demerit on the boutique remote travel industry is water sourcing. I mean, I won't name. One time I went to a very high-end, very famous brand resort. It was in dry, rocky environment in the rangelands, amazing site. And I looked around and I said, where is the water coming from for this? They had ensuite plunge pools in a truly dry desert environment. And it turned out they had gotten a USAID grant to build a 70-kilometer pipeline from a very strained community water source. And I sat there thinking, I will never come here again. And if anyone asks me about it, I'll tell them, no way. This is a totally unacceptable definition of luxury. If a USAID grant has been built to build a pipeline from a community's water source, not acceptable, right? By contrast, by contrast, I know an operator I've been involved with in Kenya's Chulu Hills at a camp called Camp Yakanzi. They built a rainwater catchment. And when I say rainwater catchment, most people think of PVC drums and roof collection and stuff like that. They built on a slope hidden behind the camp a gravity rainwater catchment that flows into these really innovative above ground flexible bladders. And you say to yourself, well, how can that be? In the rainy seasons, they collect and hold 6 million liters of water in these bladders and operate their camp completely water sustainably through the dry season, recycling their gray water into reed ponds where wildlife can get it. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen, and you wouldn't believe how cheap it was. It's incredibly cheap because it doesn't involve concrete or engineering or anything. It's gravity fed and this special kind of Italian-made bladder. And so I have said to everyone I've worked, met in the kind of safari industry, there's nowhere that you couldn't be implementing this rainwater catchment and operating without touching a community water source. So when there are examples of it, and when you talk about the center, I said to Gloria, I really think it's important that apart from ex-ministers of tourism and people at the high policy level, you need operators. You need to involve people. You need to find the people who have pushed the envelope and demonstrated what can be done with full electrification, what can be done with water, bring them in and share those best practices out so that those become the things. And let me just say one other thing about that. One thing we're not talking about is the way the industry works involves travel press and travel agents also, right? Travel press and travel agents have to go deeper. You can't just accept what a brand puts out about itself as the narrative you feed to the clients. That's why we need centers like yours to develop almost the equivalent of the LEED standards. The LEED standards for building green in the United States have become very important. We need a travel industry standard that defines these pillars of energy, water, community employment, carbon offset, et cetera. And to get the stamp, a brand has to demonstrate that they meet these things so that writers and travel agents can actually look and not just regurgitate the greenwash marketing that someone's a conservation implementer. Just, the fact that someone comes to look at wildlife at your camp does not make you an ecotourism operator. You need to actually operate. And I think that one thing I think an ambition I would set maybe for the center is to create that equivalent of the LEED standard, an industry challenged, industry stress tested set of standards that to get that certification, you have to meet real criteria within these standards and have it be part of your audit by Ernst & Young, you know what I mean?
We'll take note of that. I'm sure Gloria will. Now you, rightfully so, said, I won't name what I wouldn't go to again. Can you name what you would go to again? An operator that you like their work? Let's give some credit for good.
Yes. Well, I'm a big fan because I've known that there's a safari camp in Kenya called Camp Yakanzi. Let's see. There's something I have to be careful how I say. There's going to be an announcement in the spring about a new global luxury brand.
You can spill the beans.
A good friend of mine who ran Six Senses from its inception up to when Intercontinental Group bought it, and my friends with the Discovery Land Development Corporation they have a big announcement in the spring, and we're working with them to build state-of-the-art sustainable camps in Kenya that will come over the next couple years. So yeah, my favorite places are the ones that we're building. We're building, and we'll be next year. We'll make a presentation about it because I think we're aiming to build five-star. We're aiming to build what I'm talking about here, which is fully electrified, electric vehicle only, water sustainable and local employment 100% camps, so that we have an example of what we think this could and should be.
Okay, I will still take maybe, I'll give some credit to BB as well.
Yeah, give us a year.
6 Senses, I'll take that.
Yeah, they operated, I was very impressed when I would go to like the 6 Senses Maldives resort and you looked at, really looked at the back of house. It was quite impressive. It was quite impressive. They were also, at the time, they were contributing like 0.5% of net equity revenues, which we're going to try to do much better. We're going to try to build a model. And by the way, this is another thing worth mentioning. I think it has to be said that, and this could be part of the role of government as well, I don't know. People talk about community economic benefit, and employment is a real economic benefit. There's no doubt about that, and training and capacity building. But the real truth is, and we all know it, that the private equity returns from travel all go not only out of community, but usually out of country. And I think we ought to be looking at how some of the actual equity stays within the communities.
The communities.
And that's a complicated conversation, but one I think is worth. That's
what makes it interesting and meaningful. You you've done a lot, but I want to go back to what you asked me yesterday. You said, after our discussion, you said, what got you into tourism? And my answer to you was, in short, I genuinely believe that travelers are agents of good, whether they know it or not. You talked about how you become more empathetic. I think travelers always remain positive, looking for positive experiences. And when you pay attention to what's positive, you actually find, no matter how different the culture and the people may be, and you go back with stories that you actually share. And that is cultural bridging, which brings me to the Yale, the center that you established at Yale for Middle East studies, and you call it Middle East Peacemakers. How much of that bridges understanding, and how much of that can Saudi and whoever is interested can participate in tourism for peace?
Thank you. No, I appreciate you raising that. I was lucky. I studied history at Yale, and I had a really terrific professor of Middle East studies named Abbas Amanat, and he had a bigger effect on me than he probably knows, because I really loved those courses. And you know, when I'm a New Yorker, and after 9/11, I thought a lot about, like, what do I really want to do? What do I really think is needed? You know, within these global fissures, and I thought we don't have enough cross-cultural understanding. We don't have, we're not educated, and the more, everything we talked about, the themes of empathy is created by personal connection, and I thought whether you come at it from a national security point of view, or a conflict resolution point of view, or a cultural understanding point of view, the bottom line is I felt in 2001, I thought we need many more of the best and brightest. I'll give you an example. When I was at Yale, if you went to the modern European history... Are
you saying you're amongst the brightest?
No, sorry.
I could attest to that.
No, if you went to a lecture course in 1990 on modern European history, there'd be 300 people there. Or with my professor on modern Chinese political history, that was a packed lecture, right? My lecture class in Middle East Studies had maybe like 11 people in it, at most. And I remember thinking to myself, we've got to do better than that. We've got to have more people engaged in studying the people and culture of the Middle East.
Can I give him a clap for that?
So my grandmother, my grandmother devoted her life to funding conflict resolution process, if you can believe it. And so I thought, so what I did is I set up I set up an endowed scholarship fund at Yale at the Macmillan Center for International Studies that is named after my grandmother, but basically it was called the Middle East Peacemakers Fund. And what we do is we give travel study grants to undergraduates to study people and cultures of the Middle East and Asia Minor. And it's amazing. You know, these aren't huge scholars. These are like, these are summer travel study things, and the students have to present to us where they're going to go and what they're going to study. And it went from, you know, we used to get 4 applications and we would fund them all. Now we're getting 20 and we're able to fund 5. And we really want to grow that endowment because we probably have 5 times the number of really high qualified applicants now, including graduate students, which we'd like to include. So I'm on a push to really try to grow the endowment of that fund so that we can meet the growing demand for students who want to study in the Middle East.
I promise you, I will push for a chair on tourism for peace and collaborate with your center.
And by the way, to your point, yes, this is students and travel study, but it's travel. That's the point.
Exactly.
What we're trying to say is nothing is better than catching students between when they're 18 and 21 and encouraging them to go and make serious study of the countries of the Middle East.
The good thing is,
you know,
without asking them, they naturally do it.
Right.
Travelers look for what's good. They want to enjoy, and they actually find a lot of good in people, in cultures, in diversity. I have a lot to ask, but I know we have very few. Now, I think John is online because he just sent me a few points he wanted me to say. Now, 100% renewable energy, 24 hours per day. It's not just daytime. Biggest battery storage system in the world. Zero waste to landfill. Planting 200 million trees, 50 million mangroves. Growing coral even though we have healthy corals. And so many more. I won't read it all, but it is definitely something that we'll be more excited to see in real as they open Q1. A destination like Saudi is building storytelling capability, and film is probably one of the best storytelling content creation. What's your advice for a destination that is building film industry?
That's really interesting. Everybody's aware, I think, of the incredible proliferation of content through, you know, streaming services. There's, you know, sometimes people say to people like me who have been in theatrical films all our career, oh, are you worried about all this? I say, this is a golden age for creators, for storytellers. If you look at what Netflix and streaming has done, there is more global content. There is more storytelling coming from all over the planet now, of Korea, Israel, the Middle East, India. That content now feeds through these platforms. There's never been a greater moment for diverse voices to get their stories told, never. One of the things that has grown out of that is that global production demand has increased tenfold, right? So I'm in one of the biggest films of the year on Netflix. It's called The Glass Onion. It's the Knives Out 2, right? It's, we couldn't get stages in England to make that. We made the film in Greece and in Belgrade, right? And the thing is, you can't find stages. So I say to anybody, if the Red Sea coast, if Jeddah, if places like this that have atmospheric locations that can double for many other parts of the world where more and more stories are getting told about, that's great. But if you don't have production facilities, you make a production come there and then leave to go elsewhere. And production facilities are in really short supply. The other thing that I know you're very focused on is employment and capacity building, right?
Correct.
And in Saudi especially, this is a real focus. You have a young population, you were saying,
Absolutely.
And a lot of unemployment, right?
Absolutely.
So the thing about production facilities is that becomes the intake funnel for training and capacity building. And you can basically say, listen, contingent on the use of our stages, maybe there's incentives, production rebate incentives if the production companies come in and train up people, right?
Right.
I gave you the example of Atlanta, Georgia. When I was starting out in films, nobody made film. Maybe you made a little independent film in Atlanta. Now Atlanta, Georgia is a huge center of the biggest movies in the world, Marvel movies, all that kind of stuff, because they invested in production facilities and in training up crews. Now you can't book stages. Now it's packed. You know, it's one of the production hubs in all of the US because of their investment that they made in incentives and rebates and production facilities. The crews got trained. Some of the best crews in America, the best Hollywood crews in America are in Atlanta, Georgia now, right? So I think that's a
it's a perfect example
of what you can do.
Actually, I see His Excellency sitting with us. One of the things I was asked last night, you seem to be doing something right. What is it that you're doing different? And my answer is, in short, I can say we treat this sector not as a spillover top-bottom pyramid, but rather a bottom-up pyramid. So we work with all government entities, business partners, incentivizing them behind one vision, one plan. And I think what you said, incentivize those that will invest in human capital first, I would say definitely that's part of our DNA. And I heard Her Highness the Princess say this earlier today. The investors are our partners and customers. So what they need is convenient, clarity, partnership, and understanding the challenges and prioritizing those as we go throughout the journey together. So, Abu Atlas, we have less than a minute to close. I'm sure you've had your expectations about Saudi before you came. If I ask you, what is the one thing that was above your expectation and one that is probably below, or something that you missed, what would you say?
Well, I didn't have enough time. So, I mean, I'm a hiker and a diver, and I like to get out and see wild places, and that's the travel I pursue. So, basically, you owe me a trip to the Red Sea.
You got it.
To the Central Desert. I like birds, so I need to see raptors. I want to see your leopards. I want to see the coastal thing. Basically, I didn't get to see enough of the physical country. On the positive side, it's what we started on. I really think the best thing about going anywhere new, and this is my first time here, is meeting people face to face. Like I think when you meet people face to face, when you shake hands, there's nothing that Zoom or Microsoft Teams, it's fantastic what the wired world is allowing us to do in a productive sense. But I really think meeting people face to face, meeting you, talking to you, finding points of commonality, looking for common agenda, common goals, and finding ways to work together, you cannot do that. You can't do that by remote. And I've literally only gotten to be in this 1 square mile of Riyadh. So my number one best thing has been meeting you, meeting people. It's meeting people, and I think that's always actually the greatest thing about travel. For me, the part I want a little more of is seeing the physical country.
Julia is with us, and the Arnold and the members from the WTTC from all around the world. What's your message to them as a final note?
I think it's fantastic that within this convening, you include the idea of provocation, of challenge. I think it can't be argued, it just can't be argued that the challenge of our era is bringing our business practices and our economies into ecological sustainability. All of our geopolitical conversations, all of our geopolitical conflicts are, all of it. This is like idle conversation in a house that's burning. If the house is burning around us, our political squabbles don't matter. We have to solve the problem of climate shift and ecological degradation, because all of us, in any political framework, in any cultural framework, we have to have a planet that can sustain our way of life. And so within the framing, that is the challenge of our time. That's what future generations are going to assess us on. And if this industry doesn't play its role, given the number of people who get on planes to fly around the world and travel, given the way that our businesses operate, the built environment, all of it, then it's not going to happen. It has to be a defining challenge for the WTTC to say to the industry, We've got to push these standards higher, and I think it's if that becomes a bigger and bigger part of the WTTC program, I think that will be a real legacy.
I will say we all have to, and you have to, join our journey and make sure that you influence and be part of the Saudi Sustainable Tourism Global Center. We definitely need your voice, and I will do my part in trying to bring you more here and more other people that carry a purpose and a cause and would be willing to put the effort behind it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Norton, Edward, Abu, Atlas, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
to all of you. Yeah. Thank you.
Sound? Thank you so much. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing session there with Edward Norton and Fahad Hamidardine. I mean, really, just listening to Edward there, his conviction, credibility, and commitment to the cause, to being an environmental activist is absolutely contagious. If I can just put my journalism hat on for a moment. When people speak, when he speaks, you really feel that this is from the heart. Thank you so much. And I love what he said there, a US aid grant for a water pipeline for a plunge pool. I mean, thank you for, bringing factors out like that to the light. And as he said as well, we don't want to be tourists. What an incredible conversation there to end on, ladies and gentlemen. And we now continue, but we will wrap up this part of the conference, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come here and wrap up the 2022 WTTC Global Summit here in Saudi Arabia, don't forget that you can view any of our content. If you've missed any of the sessions, you can watch them on the virtual platform until January the 1st, 2023. That's when all the photos taken, of course, over the course of the summit will be found under the section More. And we would like to remind you, do stay here, don't go anywhere. After lunch, the ministry will host the Next in Travel event from 3 till 5 p.m. And I will continue to be your master of ceremony. And we had fantastic guests for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have Jeffrey Sachs. We also have Paul Polman, who's there in the front row. I've just seen him. Also the former president of Mexico, Felipe Calderón. A very exciting lineup after lunch. And it is now time to say goodbye. Actually, it isn't really masalama. It is ilalika, my favorite word. We'll have some closing refreshments that'll be available on the terrace, but it has been my pleasure to be your MC over these past 2 days. And now it gives me great pleasure to hand you over to our fantastic host. Please welcome the Minister of Tourism from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Excellency Ahmed Al Khatib. Welcome to you. Thank you. Shukran.
Dear friends, they asked me to close this forum. I don't want to close it. And I would like to ask you to stay more days in Riyadh. It has been a great pleasure to have you spend so much time together over the last 2 days, sharing ideas, discussing the future, and building partnerships. What a huge honor it has been to host this magnificent event. I am proud to represent Saudi Arabia on this stage as Tourism Minister. But it has been only, this has only been possible because we have done it together. There are so many people I must thank. Firstly, Arnold, thank you very much. Arnold, you built a deep relationship with the kingdom and its people. Thank you. Traveling 3 times in the last 18 months. Next year, Arnold, you must make it 4. Julia, my friend, for your tireless work in building this vital partnership between the public and the private sector and bringing us together here in Riyadh. And I have to mention Gloria, Your Excellency. Where is Gloria? You was instrumental in securing Saudi Arabia as the host for this year's summit during your term leading the WTTC. Thank you. I hope we deliver in your belief in the kingdom. And of course, the team that made this happen, please stand up. NT staff, WTT staff, STA, TDF, our partners. We have to give them applause. Without all of you, none of this would have been possible. Thank you. You have my thanks. Your commitment has delivered the largest ever global summit with over 8,000 registered participants and millions of followers online, the very highest level of speakers from former UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon to former UK Prime Minister Lady Theresa May, to name a few. We have welcomed 55 government ministers, building our promise to build bridges between the partnership, the public sector and private sector. Over 250 of our top CEOs and more than 60 ambassadors and diplomats. We thank you all. We thank you all for making this time to be here with us in Riyadh. We have enjoyed hard-hitting panel sessions, inspiring keynote addresses, new business partnership, and many MOUs signed. We celebrate our history, opening Diriyah, the birthplace of the kingdom. And we welcome the future, announcing what will be one of the world's largest airport, King Salman International Airport. It has been the perfect example of collaboration, great conversation that are already leading to meaningful action. Just one example, the next in-travel event this afternoon, driving sustainability and technology in the sector, which I would encourage you all to attend. A true reflection of what the WTTC stands for. Above all, I hope you have experienced the real meaning of Saudi hospitality. In the kingdom, we call it hafawa. We understand that hospitality has the power to unlock authentic experience. It can set us apart. And I am happy to say that we will be launching the Hafawa Award to inspire guide and reward the very best hospitality delivering by our people to you all. It has been our privilege to welcome you all into our great country, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you very, very much.
Would you please welcome back to the stage the President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, Julia Simpson.
Haifwa, how do I follow that? I mean, I think when I first met His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, I felt it the day I met him. And there is authenticity. And for me, he's the best embodiment of travel and tourism because of that authentic heart. That was such a wonderful, amazing speech. Thank you so much. Fantastic. And of course, like all good speakers, he's stolen all my lines. I had the numbers here, the ministers, the 50 ministers, 250 chief executives. The great thing is my numbers were even bigger than your numbers because every time I look around, I've just welcomed the minister from Turkey. I thought, oh, there's another one I've got to add. Welcome. And Minister Sisulu and Minister Moroto. So they're still arriving. And thank you very much to the ministers among us. You've done an incredible job. And, you know, what can I say? This year's conference, it wasn't just the biggest, it has been the most sensational. For any of us, exactly. I mean, it's been the most sensational from the point of view of the venues, from the point of view of the events. How quickly can I put the word Enrique Iglesias into my conversation? I had a front row table and I thought, this is great, I'm going to see everything. And as soon as he appeared, it was 10 deep and mostly beautiful Saudi Arabian ladies. And that's it, I didn't see him again. So it's a tragedy, but there you are. And what an incredible country. I've been doing media interviews all day and they say, what do you say about this country? And you know when journalists, they keep asking you questions and you have to cut them off. They say to me, what do you think of this beautiful country? And I go on for 5 minutes and they go, okay, that's enough. The Red Sea, Alula, the rewilding, the commitment, the drive, the passion, the people, the hyper, the wonderful hospitality that we've had. It is incredible. And if you weren't a convert before you came here, I've been here 4 times as well, and I'm going to get here 40 times. I think it's incredible. Thank you. And, you know, we've also spoken about growth, which is really important. This sector is growing. It's going to grow here. Another thing I've been saying to journalists, and excuse me if Mark from the US government is in the audience because I'm going to cause you a lot of problems, because I've said, look at the wonderful numbers that Princess Haifa has been giving about growth in numbers. This country is going to end up with more visitors than the USA. That's what it's going to have, and it is going to happen. And we've also spoken about climate and that opportunity, the challenge, but the opportunity we have to grow our industry, but decouple it from the carbon that we create. I think listening to Ed was a very honest debate. This last debate has been very, very honest. It's been wonderfully Fawad, if I may say. The interview was very, very profound for those of you that were listening to it and could be in the hall, because I know we're all out, you know, cutting business deals and all the rest of it. But the thing was, it was a very, very profound conversation and very, very honest, and something that we really need to listen to. And you know what else? I've been kind of humbled by the drive and razor focus of your leadership, and Princess Haifa and your leadership, His Excellency. And I've been overwhelmed and touched by the generosity of our hosts, immense generosity. It's not about putting it into financial numbers, but you don't have to treat people with that level of generosity, but they have, and they've gone beyond. Again, I would like to give my thanks to my special speakers, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. What a wonderful, wonderful human being. Goodness, if I could have 1/10 of what he has in his heart, incredible. Lady Theresa May, strong, tough lady who had very, very difficult challenges and was very brave in her honesty of how hard it is to be a woman and to be at the top. And as I've said, to Ed Norton, I think if there are any words that I want to leave you with, I would like to leave you with the words of our host. His Excellency, Ahmad Al-Khatib, said, in the next decade, 1 in every 3 new jobs will be created in our sector. That is a lot of lives that we can change if we do this right. Thank you.
So yes, there's a big game tonight. And we're all excited for it. Oh, I'm gonna get it, all right. I know, I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna mess with her. Yeah, all right. Thank you. You know, it's almost impossible to get one of these now. You know, we had to search countries all over the world to finally get one, but we're very excited. So look, I want to first thank Julia. Julia, thank you so much for your leadership. You've been, you have big shoes to fill, and you filled them admirably. You've been a fantastic leader, and this is just yet another example of it. So thank you so much, Julia Simpson. Thank you. But I would also like to acknowledge Julia's predecessor, Gloria Guevara. Gloria, I know you have divided loyalties right now. Mexico, I understand. We also have, I don't know if the president is still here or not, but probably got some divided loyalties. He's here. President Conrad. So some divided loyalties, but without Gloria and my predecessor, Chris Nacetta, with them not having laid the groundwork, we wouldn't be here today as WTTC. And Gloria, I can't thank you enough, both for your time in heading up WTTC, but also for the strong support you've lent all of this, you know, throughout the period of development. And so thank you very much. Look, this summit has indeed been an outstanding event in the history of outstanding events for WTTC. The sessions, the speakers, the many, M-A-N-Y, many, M-I-N-I, sound bites, I hope have given us here and those around the world that are watching some things to think about and some things to act on. I know they have for a number of us. I hope it has for everyone. Ever more frictionless travel, ever more enjoyable travel, ever more sustainable travel. And this summit, I believe, sends an important message to the world, and it's a resounding message that we have heard time and again from almost every delegate and every speaker here at this summit. Travel is indeed back, and you are proving it by being here, and thank you for being here. So to my friend, His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, and the whole Ministry of Tourism, to the many other highnesses and excellencies and the people of Saudi Arabia, thank you for your support, and I want to add mine to Julius. thank you for your gracious hospitality. It's been just overwhelmingly positive. To my friend Jerry Inzarello and His Royal Highness Prince Badir bin Saud. The events you hosted at Diriyah and Hitton Palace will be remembered forever by those who attended, and as well the many exhibitions, including the Giga Project exhibitions and the others presented here. But those events were fantastic and will be remembered forever, and thank you for that. Princess Haifa, thank you again. You've been so present here and so dominant in terms of the graciousness, and we are so appreciative of you and your efforts. And, you know, yes, I really want to point out again, not just for this summit, but for the last several years, you've been out in front for the world, making travel more frictionless, trying to get harmonization, trying to extend the collaboration between private and public sector. And you've been very successful at doing that, have become a leader in the world for all of us, and I really can't thank you enough, okay? And to our WTTC team, I have to point out, in addition to Julia, Maribel and Virginia, where are you? If you guys are here, please stand up. Stand up, Maribel. Virginia, where are you? Yeah. So Maribel and Virginia and their teams are the force. They've worked, you know, year plus in this, and thank you all so much for making it very special for everyone. And I don't know how Maribel pulled it off, but somehow she got backstage with Iglesias, and I think that was the highlight for her, but it's all good. Okay, so I want to thank all the sponsors, of course. I mean it sincerely, thank you, and all of our partners, because without you, WTC wouldn't be here. But finally, I want to thank all of you, our valued members, all the delegates, for being here and forwarding the important work of WTTC. So as we reach the end of our 2022 event, we are ready and planning for 2023, and now have the great honor of announcing our next host. So it's only fitting that our host for WTTC 2023 Global Summit will be a country that has made great advancements in sustainable tourism and is now a true pioneer in the climate agenda. Our next host for the 2023 WTTC Global Summit is Rwanda. So I hope to see you all there. I'm hoping for a victory tonight. The U.S. made it to the round of 16. We're pretty happy with that. I'm sure there'll be celebrations like crazy here or in Mexico. And thank you all so much. And I would now, it's actually my privilege, to welcome to the stage the Chief Executive of Rwanda Development, Claire Akamanzi. Claire, where are you? There she is.
Thank you. Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Mr. Arnold Donald, Chairman, WTTC, Ms. Julia Simpson, CEO, WTTC, CEOs, Captains of Industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the government of Rwanda, it is our great pleasure and honor to have been selected to host the 2023 World Travel and Tourism Global Summit in Kigali next year. We are truly elated. I would like to also express our appreciation to the government of Saudi Arabia, who through the Ministry of Tourism organized an outstanding summit. And Mr. Minister, you asked whether we experienced Hawafa. We truly experienced Hawafa, Saudi's distinct hospitality. Thank you. We have thoroughly enjoyed being here in the great city of Riyadh and have had very productive business engagements. We look forward to continuing the impactful work of WTTC when we meet in Rwanda. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, so are you ready to experience Africa next? I checked and I was told it's going to be the very first global summit in Africa, so we are truly excited. As you know, Africa is the most vibrant, richly endowed and youthful continent in the world. And some of you may know or may have heard that my country, Rwanda, is known as the land of 1,000 hills. That is true. But what is also true is that there are 1,000 reasons that you should visit Rwanda and meet in Rwanda. But today, let me just share a few of those with you. First, it is very easy to travel to Rwanda. Did you know that all citizens of the world, irrespective of where you come from, can get a visa on arrival in Rwanda? And it is free of charge if your country is a member of the African Union, the Commonwealth, or the La Francophonie. Additionally, our national carrier, Rwandair, flies to major destinations in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Together with other global airlines like KLM, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines, Brussels Airlines, your journey to Rwanda will be seamless and smooth. Second, it is very safe to visit Rwanda, as attested by international indices, including the World Economic Forum. Most recently, Rwanda was ranked the 6th safest country for solo travelers. And yes, you heard right, 6th safest. Not in Africa, not among developing countries, but yes, 6th safest country to travel in the world. So feel free to carry your running shoes and explore our 1,000 hills with a morning or even evening run. Third, Rwanda is clean and green. We put nature at the forefront of what we do. Our capital city, Kigali, which will host you next year, has been recognized countless times for its sustainability efforts. We invest in nature by investing in our people. Communities living around our national parks receive 10% of national tourism receipts. This has enabled them to improve their livelihoods by building hospitals, schools, and other transformational projects. These communities, as a result, have become invaluable partners in the conservation of our parks. That's partly why Rwanda's mountain gorilla population increased by 26% in the last census and is no longer considered critically endangered by the International Union of the Conservation for Nature, IUCN. But as you pack your bags for Rwanda, please remember to leave any plastic bags and single-use plastics at home. They have been banned in Rwanda for the last 15 years. Fourth, come early and leave later. There is so much to see in Rwanda once you're done with the meetings, the serious part first. Experience and learn about our cultural heritage. Let us share with you our story of building a nation after a devastating history and under the leadership of His Excellency President Paul Kagame. See why and how strategic and bold choices can make a big difference in building a new chapter. And of course, don't miss our bucket list item, the magnificent mountain gorillas, or safaris with the Big Five in Akajura National Park, as well as nature tourism in Nyungwe National Park. Yes, you can experience all these in one country, our country. You will also enjoy beautiful lodges in the wild. Some of you know one and only Singita Wilderness Safari, but Rwanda is also home to other global brands such as Marriott, Radisson, 4 Points by Sheraton, and soon Movenpick by Accor. Let us just say you will feel at home when you come to Rwanda. Lastly, if you decide to do so, it's also very easy to do business in Rwanda. The World Bank has ranked Rwanda the 2nd in Africa and the 38th in the world in the ease of doing business. You can register your business within 6 hours, online and free of charge. We are building Rwanda as a tech and an innovation hub for Africa. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, why Rwanda? Because we are a safe and progressive country. We are open for business and we mean business. We are an African destination for sustainable tourism that has both local communities and the traveler at the heart of our strategy. We are excited to welcome you to the World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit in Kigali in 2023. We promise you a wonderful and Rwandaful welcome. So get ready, start to pack your bags, and next, let's visit Rwanda. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, Nowartuna, thank you for attending the 2022 World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit in Riyadh. Thank you. Shukran.